My son and I made me brave. What did it matter now? It would soon be over. Charlie and Mom would never be harmed, would never have to fear. I felt almost giddy. Some analytical part of my mind warned me that I was dangerously close to snapping from stress. How odd. You really mean it. His dark eyes assessed me with interest. The irises were nearly black, just a hint of ruby around the edges. Thirsty. I will give you a strange coven this much. You humans can be quite interesting. I guess I can see the draw of observing you. It's amazing. Some of you seem to have no sense of your own self-interest at all. He was standing a few feet away from me, arms folded, looking at me curiously. There was no menace in his face or stance. He was so very average looking. Nothing remarkable about his face or body at all. Just the white skin, the circled eyes I'd grown so used to. He wore a pale blue long-sleeved shirt and faded blue jeans. I suppose you're going to tell me that your boyfriend will avenge you, he asked. Hopefully, it seemed to me. No, I don't think so. At least I asked him not to. And what was his reply to that? I don't know. It was strangely easy to converse with this genteel hunter. I left him a letter. How romantic. A last letter. And do you think he will honor it? His voice was just a little harder now, a hint of sarcasm marring his polite tone. I hope so. Well, our hopes differ then. You see, this was all just a little too easy, too quick. To be quite honest, I'm disappointed. I expected a much greater challenge. And after all, I only needed a little luck. I waited in silence. When Victoria couldn't get to your father, I had her find out more about you. There was no sense in running all over the planet chasing you down when I could comfortably wait for you in a place of my choosing. So, after I talked to Victoria, I decided to come to Phoenix to pay your mother a visit. I heard you say that you were going home. At first, I never dreamed you meant it. And then I wondered. Humans can be very predictable. They like to be somewhere familiar, somewhere safe. And wouldn't it be the perfect ploy to go to the last place you should be when you're hiding, the place that you said you'd be? But of course I wasn't sure. It was just a hunch. I usually get a feeling about the prey that I'm hunting, a sixth sense, if you will. I listened to your message when I got to your mother's house, but of course I couldn't be sure where you called from. It was very useful to have your number. But you could have been in Antarctica for all I knew, and the game wouldn't work unless you were close by. Then your boyfriend got on a plane to Phoenix. Victoria was monitoring them for me, naturally. In a game with this many players, I couldn't be working alone. And so they told me what I hoped, that you were here after all. I was prepared. I'd already been through your charming home movies. And then it was simply a matter of the bluff. Very easy, you know. Not really up to my standards. So you see, I'm hoping you're wrong about your boyfriend. Edward, isn't it? I didn't answer. The bravado was wearing off. I sensed that he was coming to the end of his gloat. It wasn't meant for me anyway. There was no glory in beating me, a weak human. Would you mind very much if I left a little letter of my own for your Edward? He took a step back. It touched a palm-sized digital video camera, balanced carefully on top of the stereo. A small red light indicated that it was already running. He adjusted it a few times, widening the frame. I stared at him in horror. I'm sorry, but I just don't think he'll be able to resist hunting me after he watches this. And I wouldn't want him to miss anything. It was all for him, of course. You're simply a human who unfortunately was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and indisputably running with the wrong crowd, I might add. He stepped toward me, smiling. Before we began, I felt a curl of nausea in the pit of my stomach as he spoke. This was something I had not anticipated. I would just like to rub it in just a little bit. The answer was there all along, and I was so afraid that Edward would see it and ruin my fun. It happened once, oh, ages ago. The one and only time my prey escaped me. You see, the vampire who was so stupidly fond of this little victim made the choice that your Edward was too weak to make. When the old one knew that I was after his little friend, he stole her from the asylum where he worked. I never will understand the obsession some vampires seem to form with humans. And as soon as he freed her, he made her safe. She didn't even seem to notice the pain. Poor little creature. She'd been stuck in that black hole of a cell for so long. 100 years earlier, and she would have been burned at the stake for her visions. In the 1920s, it was the asylum and the shock treatments. When she opened her eyes, strong with her fresh youth, it was like she'd never seen the sun before. The old vampire made her a strong new vampire. And there was no reason for me to touch her then. She sighed. I destroyed the old ones in visions. Alice, I breathed, astonished. Yes, your little friend. I was surprised to see her in the clearing. So I guess our covenant to be able to derive some comfort from this experience. I get you, but they get her. The one victim who escaped me. Quite an honor, actually. And she did smell so delicious. I still regret that I never got to taste. She smelled even better than you do. Sorry. I don't mean to be offensive. You have a very nice smell. Floral, somehow. He took another step toward me, till he was just inches away. He lifted a lock off my hair and sniffed at it delicately, and then he gently patted the strand back into place, and I felt his cool fingertips against my throat. He reached up to stroke my tweet once with his thumb, his face curious. I wanted so badly to run, but I was frozen. I couldn't even flinch away. No, he murmured to himself as he dropped his hand. I don't understand. He sighed. Well, I suppose we should get on with it, and then I can call your friends and tell them where to find you, and my little message. I was definitely sick now. It was pain coming. I could see it in his eyes. It wouldn't be enough for him to win, to feed and go. There'll be no quick end like I've been counting on. My knees began to shake, and I was afraid that I was going to fall. He stepped back and began to circle, casually, as if he were trying to get a better view of a statue in a museum. His face was still open and friendly as he decided where to start. And then he slumped forward into a crouch I recognized, and his pleasant smile slowly widened, grew, till it wasn't a smile at all, but a contortion of teeth, exposed and glistening. I couldn't help myself. I tried to run. As useless as I knew it would be, as weak as my knees already were, panic took over and I bolted for the emergency door. He was in front of me in a flash. I didn't see if he used his hand or his foot. It was too fast. A crushing blow struck my chest. I felt myself flying backward, and then heard the crunch as my head bashed into the mirrors. The glass buckled, some of the pieces shattered and splitting, tearing into the floor beside me. I was too stunned to feel the pain. I couldn't breathe yet. He walked toward me slowly. That's a very nice effect, he said, examining the mess of glass, his voice friendly again. I thought this room would be visually dramatic for my little film. That's why I picked this place to meet you. It's perfect, isn't it? I ignored him, scrambling on my hands and knees, crawling toward the other door. He was over me at once, his foot stepping down hard on my leg. I heard the sickening snap before I felt it, but then I did feel it, and I couldn't hold back my scream of agony. I twisted up to reach for my leg, and he was standing over me, smiling. "Would you like to rethink your last request?" he asked pleasantly. His toe nudged my broken leg, and I heard a piercing scream. With a shock, I realized it was mine. "Wouldn't you rather have Edward try to find me?" he prompted. "No," I croaked. "No, Edward, don't." And then something smashed into my face, throwing me back into the broken mirrors.